Intro, theme song, interview, song, outro. Welcome back to The Highway with Kyle Shutt. I am slowly losing my mind. Our guest this week is one of my favorite people, Mr. Alex Marrero, the international phenomenon himself. He's been in so many bands, but you might know him as the vocalist for Doom Side of the Moon. So we're going to talk about the metal scene in Mexico City, where he grew up. We're going to talk about what Austin was like 20, 30 years ago. We're going to talk about singing in some of the best cover tribute bands around, like Brown Sabbath and Doomside. We had too much to talk about. If you like what you've been hearing on the show, go ahead and knock on wood, feed a squirrel a peanut, whatever you got to do to make sure that your algorithm knows that you should never miss an episode. And if you want to go one step further and help throw a few dollars in the hat so I'm not podcasting in the dark, you can find us at patreon.com/thehighway. For a few scant dollars a month, you can get early access to next week's episode. You can get yourself a shout out on the program like Damian Stewart, Brent Solferino, Al Bonetta, my boy Derek, just Derek. I like it. And Gavin Mahan. We couldn't do what we do without y'all, and I sincerely appreciate your help. We also got to give a big shout out to my sponsor from another monster, Heil Sound. Because if you like the way I sound, it's because there's a Heil in front of me, baby. All right, that's enough monkey business. It's time to talk to one of my best friends. Let's do things my way.
The Highway.
Hey, buddy, what's up?
Hey, Kyle. Doing well, man. How are you?
Oh, good. Everybody, welcome Alex Marrero to the show. One of my favorite people in the whole world. My dog, Alex.
Thanks,
singer
man.
of every band. You've been in every band.
I've been in some bands. Been in a couple bands. I don't know.
Mostly known for Brownout, Golden Dawn Orchestra. He was in Brownout's version of Brown Sabbath, which is where I got the idea to ask him to sing for Doom Side of the Moon.
Yeah,
So
we did that. That's
we can
for
talk
sure.
about it all. We did the hell out of that.
Yep.
But man, you know what? Actually, I wanted to have you on the show because you have such an awesome story of where you came from and everything. Would you mind telling the people a little bit about coming from Mexico City and what playing music was like there throughout the 90s and stuff? Because it's just such a Mexico is so close to us, but it's also so foreign because of all like the
The foreign nature
stupid,
of it.
Foreign nature of it, and the government, the invisible line they make us cross to go there, and all like the racist idiots that have a problem with it. But yeah, what was that like, man? Growing up in Mexico City and playing music.
I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Growing up in that city's a beast. It's a behemoth, and I love it. I wouldn't want to live there again, just because I don't know. My lifestyle is adjusted differently. It was great growing up there. I was exposed to all sorts of incredible things. 22 plus million people. You learn to navigate a lot of different things. And, I didn't really, the time that I spent there was, I moved to Austin when I was 18. So most of the time that I spent there was my youth. And I would keep going back every year and spend, a month or so, something like that, or a couple of weeks. But I started playing music when I was 14, and by 15 we had a metal band, a whole bunch of us, and we were playing the clubs in Mexico City. There was 3, maybe 4 clubs that I think there's only one of them left now. We were playing in Rocotitlan, we were playing in El Hijo del Cuervo, which is in a great, really bohemian neighborhood in the south of the city called Coyoacán. And that's where I had my first professional gig. And it was just fun playing heavy metal as a teenager and doing the rounds. So that was really eye-opening. And it was cool when I think back on it. Like, we were such kids, because I teach rock camp now, and I look back on that. I was like, man, I would have loved to have had rock camp when I was a kid, but at the same time,
I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Right? Like, we were motivated enough as teenagers that we were just doing it on a profession. Not that we were making money, but we were out hustling. We were rehearsing really, diligently. We took it seriously. So I think that really kind of taught me a lot about the discipline of being in a band what it takes to deal with personalities, and the commitment of, like, you know, making sure that you rehearse and you get things tight and that you're composing and that you're getting out there and performing. So that was amazing. And all throughout that whole time, I was also coming to visit in Austin. So I was getting exposed to the club scene here. And that's what kind of gave me the inclination of, like, well, man, there's a lot more clubs and there seems to be a really vibrant scene. It's a smaller town. I really dug the laid back vibe. So it all just kind of coalesced to me moving up here and starting to play clubs up here. But it was an invaluable time in my life. I mean, it defines who I am. I mean, I'm from Mexico City. My parents are Cuban exiles. So I live in this kind of limbo of, I'm Cuban, but I'm not Cuban. I'm Mexican, but I'm not American. I'm Mexican, but I'm not Mexican. I'm American, but I'm not American, but I'm all of the above somehow. So yeah. That's my story, sort of.
I love it, man. What was your band called, the metal band?
It's funny. I just found that tape recently. I was digging through some, because I have bags and bags of cassette tapes because I used to make mixtapes all the time. It was a band called Corpus Delicti, which is the body of evidence in Latin. It's a legal term. We thought that was really badass when we were 15.
It sounds evil.
Oh yeah, and you know,
yeah,
it's just silly, is what it was.
What years was that too? That was like the kind of late 90s.
No, that was 90, 91. I'm considerably older than you, believe it or not.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, 90, 91.
I know. I've got your passport info from when I had to book a bunch of flights.
That's right. It was funny with Doomside because I was always the youngest guy in any musical endeavor, and as time does progress, I remember we were in Denver or something backstage, and the age thing came up, and I realized that I was, for the first time, kind of the elder
kind of like me. Like when the Sword started, I was 20 years old. Yeah, like now I'm like 38 now. I'm just like, whoa, how much time went by? What happened? What? You know, people are asking me for advice now. I'm like, what? I don't know anything. What are you asking me for? I wanted to talk a little bit because your band, when you moved to Austin, Gandaya, was that a band from Mexico that you brought to Austin, or did that form while you were in Austin?
That was when I moved here. I moved with two of my best friends at the time. They had moved up here and moved here in 94, and we put together different mutations of bands that were doing kind of Spanish language rock in the mid 90s. And then in 99, we solidified it, started as a acoustic three-piece, and slowly it started to build into a nine-piece. We had Gandaya was like a kind of a world Latin. We used to do, you know, Latin funk and Afro-Cuban music, Brazilian music, a little bit of reggae. We just kind of mixed it all up, and we put out 2 records. That band lasted a good part of 8 years, more or less, 7 years. But that started in the early 2000s, and that was, you know, the next phase of my education into the music business, because that was the best time to get into the music business for real, the 2000s.
Mm-hmm. That's where all the money was.
Oh, man, it was all happening.
God. And that's what I loved about Austin, is because it's, you know, the live music capital of the world, or it was at least back in those days. And, you know, but it wasn't just for rock or indie or whatever. There was like any kind of music you could see any night of the week, anywhere you went. And all those musicians all commingled and stuff. And I sort of came from the punk and metal scene, but that didn't mean that, you know, Latin funk bands also would play like the punk clubs and stuff like that. It was very... I guess you could say incestuous. Is that a weird word to use? But it was just very mixed. Everybody played everywhere, you know. And
it all coalesced. Yeah, I agree. It all coalesced. Like you could go to the Flamingo and see a touring reggae band, or even a punk band, or a local world music band. And yeah, it was an interesting time. The mid '90s were very fruitful, and I credit that to a lot of my musical education, because I was like a sponge at the time, and there was so much great music of all kinds going on. And there was a big Latin contingent. You know, there was a band called Tamer that influenced everybody in the scene that I know from that era. So yeah, it was a really cool time. There was a lot of variety, and it was amazing to go out every night and be able to see just about any kind of music.
Totally. The old emos was like our stomping ground for like the punks and metalheads and stuff. But also
Absolutely.
like Grupo Fantasma would also play there on like a Saturday night. And, you know, emos, like the crowd back then was kind of too cool for school a lot of times. Like, you know, getting them to move or like, you know, do any kind of crowd participation was a stretch in a spoiled town like Austin. But, but Grupo was like the only band that could get the butt shaken in emos. You know what I mean?
I remember. I remember those shows. Those were fun. I loved the fact that they would go to emos because it was so kind of out of left field, but it worked. It was great.
It really did, and it really bridged that gap. And watching Grupo go from that little funk band that would play emos all the way up to, you know, working with Prince and like doing all kinds of crazy stuff on their trajectory, while the sword was kind of up and going off on our weird trajectory with Metallica and all that kind of stuff. It was really cool to see like all these just different arms of Austin music just like kind of worming its way into like the national and worldwide circuits. But then
absolutely,
you can only do that for so long, and bands, you know, mutate and kind of the other things happen. And Grupo, they had sort of shed some of the I guess from my perception, they had shed a lot of their more traditional kind of Latin elements and just wanted to do more like kind of like an Afro funk kind of thing, where it was it didn't necessarily have like a vocal element. If it did, it was like gang vocals, and it was a lot more psychedelic. And that's when, I think like a lot of the focus for Grupo Fantasma just sort of like went, half of it stayed with Grupo and half of it went into Brownout. And isn't that when you started playing with them as a percussionist?
Well, Gandaya and Grupo Fantasma started literally at the same time at the old Empanada Parlor. And I'm actually on the first Grupo Fantasma record. I played percussion with them for about 2.5 weeks before Jose Galeano came into the picture. So I've known those guys. I've known those guys since the inception, and we've been close since and collaborated in different ways. And then then they did the Brownout thing, and they existed as Brownout for about 10 years before I even appeared. My coming into the picture with them came about with when they did that residency where they were going to do, you know, Brown Sabbath. And I just tossed my name in the mix to sing a song, and I almost didn't get, you know, that almost didn't happen because they had so many singers that were interested in doing it. But at the end of the day, none of them actually showed up. So it ended up being, oh, hey, you were interested in doing this one, right? Well, can you do this one, this one, this one? I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and that was how I saw you perform for the first time too, because it was with Brownout as Brown Sabbath, who, for anyone that doesn't know out there, they do kind of like Latin funk versions of Black Sabbath songs. It's incredible. It's so entertaining. But y'all asked me, you were doing a big show at the Austin City Limits Moody Theater downtown, and you asked if I wanted to come play a couple of songs. And I think you asked me to play, I can't remember the exact two, but when I showed up to the sound check, the two songs were maybe like 5, 6 songs apart. And Beto, the guitar player, he asked me, he's like, hey, do you know any of these other songs you want to play? And I was like, Beto, you know I know every Black Sabbath song, right? Like I know all these songs. I can play any of them right now. So I think I ended up jamming out like 8 something songs with y'all, and it was so much fun. And I just I loved the energy that you brought to the stage. You really embodied the character, and I was so impressed that
thanks, man.
You were such an entertainer. And that's why whenever I came up with the idea to do Doom Side of the Moon as like a heavy metal Pink Floyd experience, I really wanted to ask you, but I was really nervous that you just weren't going to want to do another super legacy tribute act, essentially, because y'all toured Brown Sabbath pretty hard for a couple of years.
Yeah, it turned into a thing.
It wasn't like just a flash in the pan.
2 records. No, it turned into a thing. That Moody show was amazing. That Moody show was we had just come home from a month-long tour, so we were running on all cylinders, and I'd really honed in on what I was doing as a front man because, you know, I was of the opinion, I was like, I'm not just going to go up there and stand there and sing these songs. I mean, this is Ozzy. Let me step up the showmanship and do wardrobe changes and do the whole thing and give it my own. I was never trying to do Ozzy, even though at times I sound a lot like him, but I just wanted to do my own thing with it, and it became this over the top thing, which was great. It was a blessing and a curse. But yeah, we did the hell out of it. And you're right. When you asked me to do the Doomside thing, my first answer was no.
I remember
really.
very well calling you. I was like, I knew, but then I remember I was like, I'm gonna have to give him some demos so he can like hear my idea. And I remember sending you, I think, the demo for Money and Time, and then like a few days went by and I got that phone call. You're like, fine.
Yeah. It was. I had to think about it because it's like just. It had been so consuming with the Sabbath thing, and I've never been a big cover band guy, and I was really wanting to dive into being in Brownout as the official singer and writing original material with Brownout and getting into that next phase of that band after I'd been absorbed by the band as a singer, because Brownout was an instrumental band for always. So yeah, but then I listened to the stuff and I was like, it's different. It's not going to turn into the big, we're not going to tour it for 2 years. And it just sounded like way too much fun. And it was really a challenge. I saw it as a vocal challenge. So that's why I was like, yeah, this will help me as a singer. It'll push me forward. And yeah, that first session for the Doomside record, that was one of the most challenging vocal sessions I've ever done. Because it required a lot.
Totally. And it's, how do you feel when you're tracking stuff like that? Like, how hard is it not to sing with an English accent? Like doing Aussie.
You know what's funny?
Going right from that to Pink Floyd,
You know what's funny? My friend Brian Ramos, who's a great, producer, and he was actually the original singer in Grupo Fantasma. He has a thing where he gives me shit because he's like, why do you sound like a British guy when you sing in English? What is that all about? I'm like, I do. So I guess it was challenging. There was a couple of words that you were like, yeah, I don't want you to pronounce that way. I was like, okay, fine. I can adjust that. I guess it just comes from listening to a lot of British metal and rock and growing up. I guess. I don't know. But those sessions were super challenging because it's one thing, because there's 3 singers in Pink Floyd. And each singer has its own different texture. And so I didn't want to just mimic that because this is an aggressive take on it. So I have to grab all that, make it sound still like the songs, but add an edge to it, and then just kind of put a little bit of myself. So it was one of the most challenging vocal sessions I've ever done. It really took a lot.
The whole production was challenging. Just I remember at one point we were referencing the original album just to like hear how they did a certain thing before we would track, and I just remember at a certain point, like me and Stuart, the engineer, looking at each other like, what are we doing? Like this is wrong. This feels wrong, man. I don't know.
That definitely crossed my mind a couple of times. Like, wait, is this really right? Is this sacrilege? What's going on?
I don't know. Everyone loved it, but it's one thing to cover a song or be a tribute band, but with Pink Floyd, they had such a visual element to their output that it would be a crime to ignore that, and that's why I was like, I want to have a full-on laser show to like accompany this. But a lot of times whenever bands project onto the stage, like they'll wear all black or whatever, but this time I was like, no, what if we all wore all white and got all white instruments and whited out everything on the stage so that the HD projection that we can put on there is just makes the whole stage look like it's moving. And anyone that's on drugs right now will, be in for a real treat. And even if you're not on drugs, I wanted to give away like free light diffraction glasses so that like the lasers like dance like crazy, and just I wanted it to be like this just full on experience. And it was really difficult to put that on. It was like putting on a Broadway show. Like we had to have wardrobe and lights, a video element to it and everything. It was a huge crew. After the show, like I love playing shows, but after a Doomside show, when we take a bow, it's like, whew, we did it.
Yeah. No, that was a big. I'm always impressed in the way that you visualize things and see them through, because your attention to detail is always very meticulous and you want things done right. And when you take on something like Pink Floyd, who basically invented this kind of rock show, They invented it. I mean, who was doing any kind of light show like that? No, nobody. So to take it on is pretty ballsy, and I commend you on it, and I think you did a great job. And I think the people that saw it were equally as impressed because it was done right, and that's really to your credit. So kudos to you. Kudos to you on that, because it was super fun, but it was logistically is a lot of moving pieces and getting the right look and the right feel. I mean, wardrobe wise, for me, it was easy. I just had to go.
Yeah, you were all white all the time.
I was like, yeah, I can do that. No problem.
Oh, God, dude. I was in Johnson City, Tennessee, on a sword tour one time. And before those shows, I would usually walk around, the crowd. I like talking to people. I like being in the energy of the show before it happens and stuff. And I passed this one guy, and he taps me. He goes, "Hey, man, weren't you in that all-white Pink Floyd cover band?" I was like,
does he mean that?
Please?
Which way does he mean that?
Please not refer to it that way. Dude. It's just like, good God.
Random.
Oh, man. And that wardrobe made for some rules backstage, too, because I was just like, okay, we're all wearing all white. Okay, no red wine.
Yeah.
No, we're only drinking Sprite and vodka. No. It was like
on and off.
On
and off.
Yeah,
put it
right?
on,
yeah.
do the show, take it off.
But whenever you do a tribute band, you always wonder what the people, if they're still alive, think about what you're doing, and I was curious to see if any of the Pink Floyd people would come to the surface or anything like that. Nothing really happened with that, but you with Brown Sabbath did get the chance to perform in front of Ozzy. How was that? Just doing your tribute to the man himself.
That was really interesting because there was a couple of different tiers to it. We got a friend of ours, Eddie Torres, sent us. He had been listening to some XM radio thing, and he recorded it because Sharon and Ozzy were on the show, and they started talking about us. And they're like, yeah, these guys are great. And Ozzy, tell him what you were listening to. And he's just like, how the fuck do I know? And, so that day was really surreal because he's like, yeah, these fucking guys are great. This Mexican guy sounds just like me. I'm like, what the fuck? And they're talking about this festival that they were putting together in Mexico called Oz Fiesta that we had no idea about. We heard that we were on it through this radio show. So
holy shit, are you serious?
We're like, yeah. We're like, oh, well, I guess we're going to Mexico to play Oz Fiesta. For whatever reasons, that ended up not happening. So there was, when we played the Roxy a few times, and there was talk of Ozzy coming by, but he never did. And then at one point they reached out to our management about the TV show that they have where basically he and his son travel around, get on adventures, and they wanted us to be on the show. So we agreed, and it was funny because the location was Ginny's Longhorn Saloon. It was supposed to be like, oh yeah, we're just playing here because that's where, a big 10-piece band is going to fit in this tiny corner stage. And that's just how we roll here. It's just, that's where we're going to play.
For those that don't know, Jenny's Little Longhorn, it's like a tiny old church sort of dance hall. Like if 50
awesome.
people are in there, it's way too many. Yeah.
It's a honky tonk. It's fantastic, but it's tiny. So, it was TV. It's reality TV. And it was just kind of like we set up, and then, they came in, and it's like, oh, here now, just there's camera, there's a crew. It's just us and a crew, and like, okay, now just hang out with Ozzy and Jack, and it was awkward, but it was really cool. They were, it was just really. I mean, it's like it's reality. At the end of the day, it's reality TV, right? But honestly,
anytime there's cameras on, it's awkward. Yeah, it's
awkward. But they were so sincere, and Ozzy was so gracious and so complimentary. They really were genuine. So we played a couple of songs. I was like, hey, is there anything you want to hear? He's like, yeah, play Sweet Leaf. So we played Sweet Leaf for him. It was really surreal. I had to put on my sunglasses because suddenly I'm singing Ozzy to Ozzy. And I'm like, well, at Ginny's Longhorn Saloon, I'm like, is this? I couldn't even have dreamt of this kind of scenario, even if I tried. So it was really interesting. And then at the end of it, we had a few friends. They allowed us a few friends to come back in and fill the joint up. And the Longhorn Saloon is known for chicken shit bingo. So we played chicken shit bingo with Ozzy.
If anybody out there isn't from Texas and doesn't know what chicken shit bingo is, you have a bingo board. So instead of drawing balls, out of a container to read them to play bingo, you have a chicken in a cage that every time it takes a shit on a number, that's the number.
That's your bingo.
Picks.
Yeah, that's your bingo. Did the chicken shit on your number? Yeah, you win.
It's a lot of fun, actually. But that's rad. That's a way better story than our Ozzy story. Because the Sword only played.
What's your Ozzy story?
With Ozzy one time. It was actually I was super excited. This was right before Warp Riders came out. And so this would have been 2010, summer of 2010. This is when iTunes had a festival in London, in Camden, and it was at a place, and it was actually a Chalk Farm, the Roundhouse, which is like a super legendary venue. I always wanted to play there. It doesn't hold that many people, a few thousand, but it's legendary. Everybody's played there. Sabbath, Zeppelin, any band you can imagine, always played there.
Right.
And then so the deal with it was like a 30-day festival where it was like 2 acts every day. So it was basically just like a show, but the only way to get into the festival was to register through iTunes, and you get sent the ticket. If you get sent the ticket, you just kind of get the ticket for whatever show you want. I think it was like Tony Bennett was the night before us.
Nice.
So it was like,
I love that about European festivals, like the diversity.
Oh
is
God,
crazy.
I know.
Yeah,
it's awesome. I love it too. But we got the offer to open for Ozzy there, so it was going to be like the Sword and Ozzy. As one of the shows, and I was at the Roundhouse in London. I was like, "Fuck yes, finally, this is going to be amazing. Gonna meet Ozzy. This is going to be sick." And so we get there, set up, sound check and everything. We're just, situations like that when you're just backstage, you just kind of like hang out and see what happens. And so we were all pretty jet lagged and stuff, and we're just hanging out in our dressing room doing nothing. And Ozzy walks in. And we're like, holy shit, it's Ozzy. Everybody, you're just like kind of standing up. And then right when he walked in, all of his handlers behind him were like, no, Ozzy, no, not in there, not in there. Yeah, come out. And so they like shoot him away real quick because there was, I guess, a third band that got added on there as part of like a MySpace contest. It was like there was some kind of contest that MySpace was having where if your band won, you got to open that show or whatever. Wow. And part of that deal was that you got to meet Ozzy. So his handlers were like shuffling him in to like meet this other band that like won the contest, and he never came back and said hi to us, and we never met him, and that was it. So yeah, that's my
that's funny.
very lackluster Ozzy story. Thanks, iTunes.
That's funny.
It was a fun show. I don't care. It was fine. The only thing that I thought was kind of whack about it was right when like Puffy Borden stopped playing drums for him, and Zach Wilde had just gotten fired, so it was like the band was
right,
like
I
brand
remember.
new.
Yeah.
So it was like watching an Ozzy cover band, but with Ozzy singing. It was weird, but it was a good show.
Yeah, I remember that transition. I was like, oh man, great players, of course, obviously top tier.
Absolutely.
But you do get attached to certain cats.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, one of you've been on so many records and projects and things like that, but something that a lot of people don't know about you is that you are the voice of the Capital Metro public transit system.
I am.
Unless they've taken it down.
am.
Are you still you still loaded in, like anytime a bus stops and it tells you number 1 North Lamar, that's your boy Alex right here. He does voiceover work, and how did that come about? Do you have an agent that like fields these things for you, or was that just like a classic, just right time, right place story?
I've been doing voiceover work probably since I moved here. I've been doing voiceover work since about 96, and most of the stuff I do is in Spanish. And I had done, yes, I do have an agent, but that didn't come about through them. I had done some stuff for Capital Metro in the past where they needed someone to do English and Spanish. And then when the Metro Rail became a thing that they were building, they reached out to me and they're like, would you be interested in doing this job? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I did a bunch of stuff for months because my voice is in all the automation, like all the anytime you press a button in any of the machines, the physical machines on that metro rail stop for the the visually impaired, all that stuff. It's a neat party trick. If I'm like at the White Horse or something, I just walk across the bus up to you. Here, press that button, see what happens. And so I did that, and then it extended to their buses. And I do stuff. I've been working with them for about 10 years, and I do little changes here and there, like when Manchaca changed to Menchaca, I had to do all these things, and it's great. I get to do it from home in my underwear, and I send it out, and it's perfect.
That's a good mental image right there.
Oh yeah, I figured that would be good. Yeah.
For the
I don't really do it in my underwear, but yeah.
For the musical guests, I usually ask them if we can play a song at the end, but I might just play the bus schedule at the end of this episode.
You go. Yeah, do it. Everybody's like, God. What the hell?
I know. Number 1. North Lamar.
Yeah.
That was my bus all the time. Number 1. Represent.
It was funny. Well, the funny thing is I rode the Metro Rail a few times. And it was funny to see people's reaction to the voice, especially when it goes to the Spanish, because everything has to be super well enunciated.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it sounds like an SNL skit. So it's funny to look around and just see people laugh at it. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I get a kick out of that.
Do you get a free bus, like a lifetime bus pass?
No, not really. I still have to pay, but I get to work. I get to do it from home, so this is great.
I just didn't know if you'd have like a laminate, you know what I mean, like a Cat Metro, like at a festival or something. Be like,
just flash pass. It, yeah, kind of like Wayne's World, always just kind of showing it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
Hey, I might be even able to drive a bus. Hell, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah,
that'd
be interesting. Enough, right? I don't know if anybody really wants that, but.
How are you still teaching music down at the straight music and the music school in the back of that?
I do still teach at the Austin School of Music. I have a select number of in-person students, and we're all masked up and socially distanced, and it's worked out pretty well. And I do a lot of virtual lessons as well. So yeah, I'm still teaching. Always juggling 3 or 4 different things, especially now since live performance is not a thing, as some of us may have noticed. So yeah. So yeah, I still teach, and it's great.
I really enjoy, because I teach guitar lessons just online and stuff like that. And I love teaching just because it constantly makes me reevaluate myself, be like, oh man, I'm actually not as good as I thought I was, or something. You know what I mean? It's do you have many students, I guess, that like you can like really see the progression in? Because a lot of your students are kind of on the younger side, right?
I do. I get a lot of beginner students, but it's just like anything. It depends on what the students' goals are. There's some students that I've had for years that came in not knowing a single thing, and they've just blossomed into being able to really play and write their own stuff and be really creative. And that's when it's really rewarding. It's just, teaching is always just a crapshoot, because you never know if it's just the parents that just want them to take the lessons. But if you can connect with them, and I do have a few that I've connected with who are awesome, that are really into it, it's super rewarding. And you're absolutely right. It keeps me in check, and it keeps me wanting to keep learning, because sometimes they'll throw a curveball, and I was like, oh, yeah, well, I got to brush up on that, or, totally. Make sure that it keeps me sharp in that sense. So it's really great. It's really great.
For me, I found that, you can teach people music all day. It's pretty much just like teaching math or anything else. But the thing that I think it's really important to instill in people is the desire to want to do it. And that's kind of more where I found that it's much more of like a philosophy kind of thing, where you have to dress up, practice in a way that makes it fun. It'd be like, don't even call it practicing. You know what I mean? Just call it like, do this for like your warm-ups. And then when you go in, like, I just try to avoid like the words that a lot of people, that kind of have negative associations with, or like chores or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't want it to feel like that. So it's like getting them to want to do it. That's when when you see it click with people, you're like, oh, cool, man. I love seeing that. I love teaching.
It's really great, and you're right. I mean, it is. Why are you doing this? And I have students from the age of 7 to the age of 70, like literally all across the board. So it's interesting to see where people are coming from. And I'm always really excited about people on the older side who just decided to pick it up because they're doing it because they really want to enhance their lives. And those are really rewarding because you can push them and they're into it. But it's absolutely like, what are you trying to accomplish, right? Like, do you just want to get your parents out of your hair and just do this, or do you want to learn about how this can really enrich your life and the people around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But ain't nothing like playing a show on the road, man. Let me tell you.
Oh,
God,
I don't even remember what that's like anymore.
I know. I worry that like enough time will go by to where we'll all just be like, "What? A tour? What is that? How do you do that? How are we going to get there?" Like, you just forget everything, you know? Because I'm used to touring, you know, in a van with anywhere from like 4 to 6 other people, whatever like that. What's it like trying to take, you know, a huge like 9, 10, 14 piece band? Because I mean, Grupo at one point wasn't it like 12, 13 people, something like that?
Yeah. I don't know.
How do you do that?
You know,
in a van.
Yeah.
You know, I understand if you're a 4-piece band with a 8-piece crew and you've got buses and this and that and blah blah blah. But like just taking an act like that on the road, because we would be out, you know, playing like Reggie's in Chicago. You know, and then like see Grupo stickers backstage and stuff. Be like, Grupo played here? Damn. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, no.
How'd they fit on this stage? What the fuck?
That's one thing about both Grupo and Brownout, which are essentially the same group of people. Like Grupo has 2 extra people that are not in Brownout, and I'm not in Grupo. So, but they've always had an old school kind of DIY. Like you just got to get out and tour and do it, and that's how you do it, right? It's that philosophy. So I've always respected that. However, yes, it is a pain in the ass touring with 9, 10 people. It requires 2 vehicles. Like there's a big van, a 15-passenger van, and then we'll rent another mid to large size vehicle so that, I mean, in the old days, the first tours they did, I'm pretty sure it was everybody in that one van, which, you know, probably everybody's in like 20s, right? But nowadays, when Brownout goes out, we have the 15-passenger van, and we'll rent like a minivan or something like that to spread it all out. Because it's, yeah, I mean, if there's any advice to people coming up in the music industry who want to have bands, keep it small. Just keep it small.
Oh,
it's
man.
great.
Like,
it's great. It's an amazing sound. It's an amazing sound, but it's hard to make money anyway. So you start tacking on people, and I love all these people. These are great musicians, and they're my brothers. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, you know, I've been in so many large bands that I'm like, what? And I got sucked back in because then I veered into just being a drummer, and I was in a 4-piece band. And we toured for a couple of years, and it was amazing. It was just 4 of us. I was like, I love this. And then suddenly I get sucked back in, and I'm in 3 bands with more than 10 people. It's like, how does this happen? Why?
That's crazy. That's just nuts. Because when I met you, I knew you as a percussionist. And then a singer or whatever. I didn't know that you played guitar until much later and everything like that. But it was talking to you about how you became a drummer by just going to New Orleans every weekend and just sitting in with whoever was just jamming that night. Man, what was that like? Because like New Orleans is such a unique music city where like you just kind of there's just music everywhere, anywhere you go, street corner. I mean, Austin has a lot of clubs and things like that, but I just feel like in New Orleans it's just like in the street. There's just so much music, it spills out everywhere, and like you can just go to a club and a band will be playing for like 5 hours, you know, and it's just all the members just switch out whenever somebody gets tired and this and that. What was that like, just going there cold and just sitting in with whoever decides to get on stage?
So the way that went down, it was when Gandaya ended, I was burnt out, and I was like, you know what, because I was the front man, lead singer, manager, shrink, of everything in that band, right? So when that ended, I was like, I was fried. So I was like, I need to be a drummer. And I hooked up with Topaz, who is the leader now of Golden Dawn Orchestra, and a couple of other friends, Bobby Perkins, John Branch, fantastic guitar player. And we formed the band. There was an extension of Topaz. Topaz played like funky acid jazz in New York in the 90s. Then he moved here, and we connected, and we put this swampy, bluesy rock quartet called Mudphonic, and we were touring a lot. And we were going to New Orleans very regularly. And I was a green drummer, so I would just be, because these are long shows, and I'd be playing, and I was just developing my chops, and there's so many great players in New Orleans, especially horn players. So you're doing a 4-hour gig, and there's a line of horn players that are going to come in, and they want to take their 30 choruses, and you got to keep the fire underneath all of them. And then you got all these badass drummers that are staring you down, waiting for you to get tired, to be like, hey, come on, I got more chops than you. You tired yet? Let me get up there. Which at times, by the third hour of the gig, I was like, yeah, just come up and play, man. I don't care if you play circles around me. I'm going to go have a drink. But touring the country with that band is really what was my drum music school. That's what really, just doing it, I became a professional drummer. And New Orleans and San Francisco had a lot to do with, because when we were hit those cities, and those were really high-level musician cities, that I got put in situations that humbled me, and that's the best way to learn.
Yes, it is. Was it a situation where, like, in every single show there would be people that would be showing up to, like, solo and shit like that? You know what I mean? Or was that just specifically, like, just certain cities where that was kind of like the vibe?
Certain cities. In the nature of the music we were playing, it was very jammy, a lot of open-ended solos. Like, it was very jammy. So it was just in the nature of that jam band circuit almost. So it was very part of those kind of shows. There's always people. And Topaz had known so many people from touring in his own right as a horn player. So as a horn player, you know a lot of horn players. So especially in New Orleans, there was just a lot of horn players coming in.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what I love about New Orleans, is because, like, in Texas, a lot of times, I don't know if this is true in every case, but a lot of people that I knew, you play the instrument that they played because that was the instrument just in the house. You know what I mean? Like, there was a guitar in my house, so I played the guitar because that's what I had. In New Orleans, sometimes it's like all there is in the house is a tuba. Yep. You know, and so the kid plays the tuba, and he plays the tuba like I play the guitar, you know, and stuff like that. So, and that's why I think that music from New Orleans specifically just has such a attitude that you can't find anywhere else. And I think
nowhere else,
because
it's a brass and drum town. Just how Austin is a guitar town, New Orleans is a brass and drummer town.
It's so sick. There's nothing I used to love more than just walking down the street in New Orleans, and then all of a sudden just a parade out of nowhere just happens. Like, a band just starts walking down the middle of the road, and people just start following them, and next thing you know, there's just a party in the street for no reason at all. It's a party.
Yep. Insta party, and they're grooving so hard. It's amazing.
One time I was walking down Frenchman Street, and a guy was like a construction worker was driving a cherry picker down the road very slowly just to get to the construction site or whatever, but everyone around him just started cheering like, yeah, what's up? So he started like honking the horn and raising it up and shit. It was just like, one of the funniest things I've seen.
I love New Orleans. I love New Orleans. Love New Orleans.
Yeah, me too. One of these days, going back, I'm gonna party hard there. So what's going on these days? You got any music you're cooking up that you want to talk about, or you just
it's been an interesting laying low, yes, but I've made just doing a lot more stuff at home. I'm recording tracks for people. You know, I can do drum tracks, or I can do vocal percussion tracks. We've done some stuff with Brownout. We kind of written some stuff that we're trying to get in placement on, and we did a podcast with the music. We got commissioned to do the music for a podcast, which was really interesting. That was a good one. Nice. So I'm just doing, I've had to step up my studio game a little bit, and I'm just, I do voiceovers and record stuff for other people and compose music for, whether it be a commercial or anything like that. Basically, whatever comes in, if I can do it, I will. It's one of those things you just gotta make it all work, right?
I always just say yes to everything. And then I just figured it out later. I was like, shit.
Of course. Yeah.
What have I got myself into?
Yeah, totally. Talk about trial by fire sometimes.
Yeah, right. Well, where can people find you? Like, because just people like you and me got too many projects. Is there any one place where they can go that you would recommend to find all the awesome things that you're up to?
Yeah, man. Probably my website. I mean, Facebook is always a quick one. I have a personal and an artist page, but my artist page, I don't really spend much time on Facebook or social media these days. So my website is alexmarreromusic.com, and you can reach out there if you have any whatever musical needs or voiceover needs, or you just want to say, hey, what's up? You can reach out to me there or through the old Facebook, Alex Marrero. I'll have an artist page and a personal page. The personal page tends to be a little more active, but yeah, anyone, or an Instagram at Music Marrero. Yeah, I'm around. I do things.
Follow him. Enjoy life. Listen to his music. You're one of my favorite people, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, dude.
No, thank you, man. It's always an honor and always really fun to be a part of anything that you're any of your endeavors.
Hell yeah. Do you think it'd be okay with the dudes if we played a Brownout song?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, we'll put it in any favorites. I loved your Over the Covers EP, but I didn't know if you had anything else you'd rather play.
Well, here's pandemic was interesting because we sat on a record that Steve Berlin from Los Lobos produced. We had to wait to put it out because of Grupo Fantasma also had a record cycle coming out. So we sat on the album for about a year, and then we released it March 6th of 2020. So
yeesh.
Yeah, so that record really just kind of just disappeared, but it's it's the first Brownout record that has vocals on most of the tracks, and it's different, it's dark, it's just very different for a Brownout record, and I like it a lot. And it's called Berlin Sessions. Check it out. You can definitely hear how the Brown Sabbath stuff influenced the band in our compositions. There's some interesting things that are not expected from Brownout. Yeah, there's a cool track called Seamus that I like a lot. Seamus like the Irish name, not like Seamus because we're bastards, come and shame us. No. Yeah, I really like Seamus. It's kind of a real interesting, broody, dark track. So that's an interesting one, something different.
Awesome. Well, we're going to hear it right now. Dude, thanks so much for coming on.
No, thank you, man. I look forward to seeing you, giving you a big old hug.
much for tuning into The Highway this week. A big shout out to Reverend Guitars, Railhammer Pickups, and Earthquaker Devices. If you liked what you heard, you can follow where you can follow, subscribe where you can subscribe, and if you want to go one step further, you can support us on Patreon at The Highway with Kyle Shutt. For a few bucks a month, you can help us keep this party going, get early access to next week's episode, and even get yourself a shout out.